Hey.
Jeanette!
What?
You did it.
I know.
She
I
did
can't
it.
believe it. I can't
She did
believe
it. How are you feeling?
Exhausted.
Right.
You know, it's been a couple days now since I was at the last show, right? Which was Wednesday. Was the record-breaking show.
Right.
And I continued on. Till Thursday night at midnight. So I wanted to get in as many as I could. But between Friday, again, I was at a show. We saw the Pool Boys, right?
Went to two shows Friday night.
Went to two shows Friday night.
Even after you broke the record and it was all over.
Exactly. I was committed to those two shows, and then last night I rested. I didn't go out. Yeah, there was a lot of opportunity. I could have gone and seen Billy. He was playing last night in Leesburg, but I couldn't. I was just too tired.
Yeah, I was tired too, just watching you.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what did you do to prepare for all of this? I know we talked a little bit about this in the beginning, but we really haven't had a chance to really sit down and talk about it all.
Well, the preparation was a lot. Like, this was on my radar back in January. You know, there's a couple in Maryland who had broken the world record for the most shows as a couple. I think it was about 135. And it came through on my newsfeed, and I'm like, wow, that's such a cool thing, because I love music and I love going to shows. Then I was counting to see how many shows that I went to. I'm like, this is something that I could probably break the record. Right. But as a couple, I needed somebody else to commit, and I couldn't find anybody, because it's a big commitment. That's a lot of shows. That's almost like, one every other day. So I also, with Meetup and, posting all the Meetup shows that we go to, I was like, how many can I do like in a month? And there wasn't a record for that. And I said, okay, well, that's a long time, a month, to commit to a month. Even a year is a long time. And then I saw, it popped up on online, was that there was this Dutch guy from the Netherlands.
A DJ.
Yeah, he was a DJ. And he had the world record for the most shows in a week. And it was 21. And I'm like, 21? I wonder if I could do that. So I did a little research to see how many shows, actual shows, because there's a lot of criteria, right? You have to have, the venue has to be a certain size, it has to hold over 200 people, it has to be a publicized event. There's a lot of things. Festivals don't count, because if they did, I would have broken it already. A lot of people would have broken it already.
Goes to a lot of festivals.
Right. Especially after being Daytona, like, there were 100 shows there.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let me figure this out, and I did. So I submitted my application to the world record to see what they thought, because it's something that they have to approve and feel that it's a record worth breaking, because they could have declined it and said, no, we already have somebody, we're not interested. But they came back 6 weeks later and they said, yeah, you know what, if you can break this record, great. I told them I'd do 24 shows, and I told them I would do, different genres, not all just one type of music. And they said, yeah. And that's when, that's probably like in May. And that's when I really was like, oh boy, now I got to really, prepare for this. So I was looking at show calendars and scouring, venues that I normally go to, venues that I don't normally go to. I went to a bunch of new venues that I now love and cannot wait to get back to.
Yeah, Earps was like a really cool discovery.
Yeah.
I had never heard of Earps
before. Ordinary in Fairfax. Yeah. I love that place, and I totally want to go back there. As a matter of fact, like, one of the shows towards the end, my 26th show, I was at Earps, and I saw two great bands, and they, so it was Never Elected, and it was Odd Sons, and Never Elected was just such a unique, they play original music. It was just very unique, and I said, oh, I gotta see them again. So through this process, I found a lot of great musicians that I would definitely go see again. But so I, back to the scheduling part of it, I had to find venues. And then, with summertime, so a lot of it's outdoors, and you have to think weather, right? So weather could be, and I took that into consideration, because there could be a rainy day where the show's canceled and you have to find like a backup. So I had like 28 or 29 shows, and in the back burner, just so that I knew I could meet the 24, and just in case there was rain out, I had 29, 30. But come the week of, there's Hurricane Debbie decided she wanted to, rain on my parade, because it happened like the last 2 days, and I have to tell you, it was very stressful.
It was stressful.
There were shows that were canceled. I was in the rain, you were there with me. I mean, I'm under the table with my phone filming, because, you know, if you're not filming it, it doesn't count. The show went on.
The show went on.
Finally, they had to take a break because they were afraid they were going to get electrocuted, because
there's equipment getting wet.
Yes, and I'm like, this is crazy. And the rain was pouring sideways. It was bad.
It was bad.
So it was.
She's propped up, or not. She's like stuffed under this umbrella,
Yeah.
like filming, and then I was the friend that went out into the rain to
take the picture
of her.
I have to post that specific picture, because it's literally like the epitome of whatever could go wrong went wrong. And as much as I thought I was prepared, I was a little stressed out the last day, because I wasn't prepared for a hurricane to, you know, take out a lot of my shows towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think that picture definitely demonstrates your commitment to getting this done and to breaking that world record. So what weren't you prepared for? I know you're kind of prepared for weather, but what weren't you prepared for?
What I was not prepared for was, listen, I'm an amateur. I'm not a videographer. I'm like, I could do this with my iPhone. I've seen others do, you know, upload videos from their iPhone. Well, my iPhone apparently just did not have enough data. It didn't have storage. And so every day I was stressing, like, uploading to YouTube so that I can clean out the storage for that day. And then I'd be like, oh my God, I have 5 shows. That's a minimum of 45 minutes per show. I mean, I think I broke it down. I videotaped 1,600 minutes of shows for that 7 days. So storage in your phone is critical. It's very critical. And I was not prepared for that. I was a little stressed out with that too. So
that first day too, you were actually running out of battery too.
I was running out of battery.
Friends, like, rescued batteries.
And I called you, and Julie came, and I'm like, my battery's dying. I need more battery backup. So you know what? If I had to do this again, I'd have a lot of battery, and I would have maybe like a camcorder or a GoPro or something like that. I might not do it on my iPhone next time, but I figured, you know, I wanted it to be simple. I'm just going to 27 shows and videotaping. How hard could that be? But yeah, you learn. And you know, and every time there was an obstacle, there was traffic, or one show ran late, so I was gonna get to the next show at the second set, and that put my whole schedule off. I would keep saying to myself, you know what? This is a world record I'm breaking. It can't be easy. It wouldn't be easy, or everybody would do it. So that's what I kept saying. It's like, I'm going to have these trials and tribulations, because this is something that, like, it's extraordinary to be able to get that done. So trust me, I lived through that process.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
We all know your favorite band is the Pool Boys.
Like, Pool Boys are my favorite.
We all know we both love Billy T. Wilde and his guys. Who was your other favorite act? What was the
So the
best
sad part is that the Pool Boys band wasn't in my schedule that week. It just didn't work out, and it's too bad, because actually they played on Friday night, so it's a day after, and there was no way I can get that show in. So Dan did have an acoustic set, which was really cool. He had the Olympics playing in the background, and I mean, it was a huge screen, and he was playing with the Olympics, and poor Dan, because I go to upload that video to YouTube, it was a 50-minute video, and YouTube came back, and because the Olympics were playing in the back, a lot of it was copyright. So they chopped up that video to 25 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, what are the chances that the Olympics is playing, the hurricane came, like Dan's video, it was terrible. But besides that, which I love, and I got to, Billy was the first night, which is great, so I was happy. But besides that, I mean, there were a lot of fake radio who I found over at Jam and Java. I walked in on their show. They had just started, and I was like, wow, this is a unique band. They had some original music too, and each musician in that band just had their unique style, and it all like meshed together. I'd never seen anything like that. And at the end of their set, I went up to them, I'm like, you know what? I really enjoyed your show. I need to take a picture with you. they were so appreciative. They're like, oh my God, we've been playing for a long time, and you know, no one's like recognized us like that before. And so the news articles
fake radio.
Yeah, fake radio.
Fake radio.
Yeah, fake radio.
We got to be on our.
Yeah. So they were just so appreciative of the whole thing, and they got mentioned, you know, in a couple of the news articles, which was great. And so is Marilyn Husick, who I saw at ERPS. She was great, and they put her on the cover of one of my one of the magazines or the news articles. They put her right on the cover, and she's like, oh my God, this is so exciting, because she's another one. She's got, you know, original music. So it's not about going to see the bands that have like the cover. You know, I like original music, and that's what I was really expanding my horizon on that one.
What was your biggest disappointment?
My biggest disappointment, I have to say, I didn't really have one biggest disappointment, but when we were at Britton James was when the rain came, and that got cut short, right? So I was really disappointed because I was very interested. I had friends that had said that he was
really
great.
Good too.
Yeah, he was really good, and I didn't really get to see the rest of that show because we had to go on to, because that was like the tiebreaker show. So we had to go on to the record-breaking show. So we really couldn't stay to watch the rest of his second set, which is disappointing.
But he was so good, and here's the thing about these musicians is even though it's pouring rain, they don't stop.
They continue to play.
They keep going.
Yeah.
Their dedication to their craft is amazing. All right, let's talk about the numbers. You already mentioned how many minutes of video you've shot.
I know. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was something like 1,600 minutes, 500 and maybe 70 minutes driving, in the car driving from show to show to show to show. Listen, I was in the DMV area. The majority of the shows were in DMV, the DC, and Northern Virginia, but I would go back and forth. And a lot of it would be during rush hour. So I'd be sitting in the car for a long time, and so that was a lot. I mean, money spent was only about $278. I didn't spend a lot of money. A lot of the shows were free. And that's another thing that needs to be brought to attention, is that you don't have to spend a lot of money to see good music. You don't have to spend, you know, $500 to go sit in the pit over at the Capital One Arena. You can find music that's just as good locally for free. Maybe it's a $5 cover charge. I think the most I paid in cover was $25 to see the Gathering Gloom over at ERPS. They're the Cure cover band, and they're great.
They're really good.
Like, if you close your eyes, you thought you were at the Cure concert. Yeah. So that was probably the single most I spent. Parking, yeah, you know, when you're in DC, you're going to spend money on parking because it's not easy. I was at the Woodrow Wilson Plaza every day. They have great music there.
And a great farmers market on
They have a great
Wednesdays.
farmers market on Wednesdays, but parking's not easy, so you're going to pay for parking. But overall, it was $278. So 27 shows, $278. You can't go wrong.
I just found it. 1,620 minutes spent video recording, 734 minutes driving, 570 miles traveled, $278 spent, 168 hours dedicated, 81 witnesses.
81 witnesses. That was interesting because, you know, you're at a show and you have to have witnesses, right? And these can't.
And you were at some shows by yourself.
Yeah, and I was at a lot of shows by myself where, you know, I didn't know it, and I would just have to go up to a random person, like, okay, you've been sitting here next to me this whole set. Can you please be a witness? A lot of people are reluctant. They don't want to sign their name to documents these days, right? They're thinking like identity theft. So at that point, I have to whip out my credentials. I'd be like, look, these are all the shows. These are all the signatures I've had. This is a record that I'm trying to break. And then they would come around. And some people would be like, I'll give you my email, but I'm not going to give you my phone number. And I'm like, all right. And then I would get another witness. But I mean, you'd think that would be the easy thing, but it wasn't so easy.
All right, so 29 musical acts experienced.
Yeah.
And while we were driving over here, I actually went through and counted. I went through all your pictures and started counting the musicians.
Mm-hmm.
You heard, I think, at least 125 musicians.
See,
in 1
that
week.
number I did not have.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. If you break it down to the musicians, that's a lot.
And I don't even think I got everybody from the Marine Corps band.
Oh no, there were like
might have been more.
There were like
I only
I don't
counted
know,
30.
200. There, I mean, that one band, the main band might have been like maybe 30, 40, maybe 50. But then they brought in all the others.
Okay, so I didn't even know
There,
about that.
yeah, there was a lot there. And in that, you know what, that, now that we talk about that, that was very unique, is the Marine Corps drum and bugle.
And how did you
corps.
find that? Tell that story.
Oh my God, this is a funny story. So I was going to a show at the Kennedy Center in DC, and lo and behold, I get there and that show was canceled. I guess there was a special event going on that day, because every day at 6 p.m. they have a show, but that day there was no show. So I was literally in tears. I was wondering what I was going to do, because I needed to make that up. And also I was going to see Train that night at Jiffy Lube. So I didn't have a lot of time to work with, because by this time it's 6 o'clock. I had to be at Train. And I'm like, I had to get one more in that day to meet my numbers, because I already knew that on Wednesday was going to be my 22nd show. So I didn't want to mess up the schedule. So I was with my daughter, and we're driving from DC to Jiffy Lube. And as we're driving past the Iwo Jima Memorial, and out in front is the Marine Corps band just practicing, like a group of like 40 of them in their red uniforms. I was like, oh my God. I quickly veered off the highway, did a U-turn, went in there, because I'd remembered that was one of the things that I had wanted to see, but I didn't think it would work with the rest of my schedule. So I kind of like, put that in the back and forgot about it. So as we were driving by, and I got there literally 15 minutes before they started, and I walk up and I find one of the
Marines.
Yeah, one of the officers there. Yeah, one of the Marine officers. And I said, this is what I'm doing. I go, is it okay if I videotape this? And like, absolutely. And I'm like, and I need a picture, and I need a witness, and he looked at me like, oh my God, really? You need all that? I go, yeah, and I need to see the front. And he's like, okay, just let me see what I could do for you. And he did. He came through. Like, we got the picture. I got the witnesses. He put my daughter and I, yeah, right in a seat that were reserved for families of the band. But he came through and he put me there, and I'm like, this is God looking out. So I was there, so I saw that, and I was like so pleasantly surprised, because they are like a well-oiled machine. I mean, there is not one movement that is out of sync. I was in awe of what I saw.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And even my daughter Lissa, who's really not a fan of drum corps, but she thought it was a neat experience. So that was, that almost didn't happen, but it did, and I'm happy it did. Yeah.
So 27 shows attended.
Mm-hmm.
That was, you made sure you were breaking that record, and you were going above and beyond. 11 venues visited, and 7 days of nonstop music.
Yeah,
So
11 venues. Yeah, so 11 venues. A lot of them were new. Like I said, it could have been more because of the weather circumstances. There were a couple that were taken off, but because I never really got to the Kennedy Center to actually see an indoor show. So, and I really wanted to. So maybe next time.
Maybe I'll try to break. She's talking about it, doing that again.
Maybe I'll try to break my
this
own
time with
record,
a GoPro.
right? This time with a GoPro on my head, right? Maybe, I wonder if anybody's done that, if they've broken their own record, just for the sake of breaking their own record.
I'm sure if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be you.
So. I know, it was just so exciting. I mean, listen, at the end of it, I was exhausted, and it's not going to happen. You're not going to go to 27 shows, literally, in 7 days, break the record in 6 days, and not be exhausted when you're doing 5 shows a day and working. I was working.
She was working as well.
I was working daytime. Like, I had my laptop with me everywhere I went. The majority of the shows, I have to say, I got the big chunk of it out on the weekend, right? I had like 15, by Monday morning. So, and the shows were basically nighttime. So it was hard, working and doing all that. Yeah, it was a little difficult. But.
Okay, so what do you have to do now for Guinness? What's left?
All right, so Guinness, right, you can't just be in the record book because you said that you broke a record, right? So they gave me the criteria. They gave me the the form of everything that needs to be filled out. I have to have an inventory sheet that's going to list every single photo, every single video, every single witness statement, every single advertisement of the bands that played, because it had to have been publicly advertised. So I have every one of those. All of that gets uploaded into their system. So 27 hours of video needs to be broken down into like a megabyte. So I'm working on that now. And I think it's going to take about a week to get all that there. And then they said it takes up to 12 weeks for them to review and then finally give you the official word. It could happen sooner, but when that happens, we're gonna have a huge party. When I get that certificate, we're gonna have a huge party. And then, getting into the actual book, September is when the book for next year comes out. So of course I didn't meet that, but I feel by next September I'll be in that release for the following year, and and hopefully nobody breaks my record between now and then, because that would be disappointing, because I just have to go do this over again.
Yeah. What was your biggest surprise?
My biggest surprise? Yeah. My biggest surprise were, I'm telling you, I really loved, finding the new bands. I think that was my biggest surprise. I think, when I was at ERPS and I saw Never Elected, I was never at a show where I was literally laughing. This guy should be a comedian.
Yeah.
He sounds great. He's got a great band, and they're all like interesting. But I was laughing because he just puts on this crazy, energetic, like off the wall show, and that was like the most memorable, I have to say.
Yeah.
Where I had to go see them again. Odd Sons is great. They played together, that night. They were back to back, and I know that they're friends.
The sound guy at Odd Sons was actually at the Britton James show with all the rain.
Yeah.
And when he found out what we were doing, he was so excited. He's like, "Are you going to come see me?"
Yeah.
He was already on the list, and he didn't even know it. So he discovered that the night before.
And what's funny is that when I went to go see the David Bach Consortium, the drummer there was like, "Oh my God," he goes, "I met you this week. You're still doing." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." So he was the drummer of another band I had seen over at Farm Brew for Mark Dunn. And I'm like,
funny.
That, it's funny how like you see the musicians kind of like morph into other, music, they do different things for, their sound people, their drummers, they're a drummer for this band, drummer for that band. And I like how they get around and, they get to experience the different genres of music, because it was totally different.
That's cool.
Because I went to Consortium, and then, and Dunn was just like, kind of like country rock. So it was interesting how you can go from like one to the other so easily. But
and what happened at your very last concert? What was your very last night like?
Oh my God, my very last night was terrible. So no. So what happened was I got to one of the shows, to Jam and Java, and that show ran long. They did not break, and that really put me back a lot of ways, because then I was getting to the second set of the next show, and I really, really wanted to end up in DC. Like, that was my goal, was to end in DC at Morgan's Adam, and
Madam's Organ.
Morgan's Organ. I do that all the time. Madam's.
We're gonna do the shout out. We need to make sure we get it right. Madam's
Organ. I always want to say Morgan's Adam, but it's in Adams Morgan, so it's so confusing. Okay, so that's where I really wanted to end, because I was there one night on Monday and saw a great band there. They were fantastic, the Exit 10 band. So they were great, and I wanted to end up there, but I couldn't, because it was just the timing, because the shows ran late. I ended up at Tyson's at the brew pub downstairs, and I saw the Dad Guys. It was the Dad Guys, and they were great. And they had heard of me, and so we had like a little, back and forth while the film was rolling, and that was just it was great. They had great energy, and it was a great way to end it. Even though I wasn't in DC, I was actually at Start Hill Brew Pub in Tyson's, which was great.
He saw her filming and actually said,
"Oh yeah,
you've been checking your makeup for like 10 minutes."
Oh yeah, that's funny. Because as soon as I walked in and it started, I was like, video. And then, at the end of one of the songs, they're like, okay, so we got the camera rolling. Is she checking her makeup for 10 minutes? And I'm like, oh my God, who checks her makeup for 10 minutes? I go, I'm filming you guys for the world record. And then they figured it out. So yeah.
All right. Congratulations.
Yeah,
So exciting.
Thank you.
Can't wait
and
to
thank
party.
you. I know. Yeah. So we'll have a follow-up when I get the official word from the Guinness Book of World Records that I am actually in there. So it's just going to be a week of getting them information and then just waiting. So yeah, we'll be back.
And what are you going to do with your YouTube now that you've completed this?
Yeah, I'm going to keep the YouTube. I think as I'm going, I have the meetup group, right? So we have the Live Nova Music Mingle, Nova Live Music Mingle. And so we have shows that are, constantly up there for meetup. I'm going to continue filming, and I'm going to try to get more, I'm going to try to get behind the scenes of the band members and talk to them when I'm not so constricted with data and memory and my, and
so you're
storage
gonna bring
my
that
phone.
GoPro.
Yeah. So I'm going
You see a
to
woman
get
at a
more,
concert with a GoPro on her
yeah,
head.
that's
That'll
me.
be Jeanette.
Yeah. No, but I'm going to definitely continue that because I want to showcase the local music that I go to still.
That'll be cool.
All right. All right.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's exciting.
Cut.